Gardener plants trees in desolate area transforms into lush garden over time, bringing hope and beauty to the community. Ezekiel Hayes walked slowly through the desolate streets of his small town, the sun hanging low in the sky like a heavy burden. The air felt still, as if even the wind had given up hope. Memories of Clara, his late wife, flooded his mind. He remembered her laughter, her gentle touch, and the dreams they once shared. They had envisioned a beautiful garden, full of life and color, where the two of them could spend their days nurturing plants and each other. But now, that dream felt like a ghost haunting him in the empty spaces of his heart. As he turned a corner, he spotted a neglected plot of land. Weeds choked the earth, and the soil looked dry and cracked. It seemed forgotten, much like Ezekiel felt since Clara's passing. A spark ignited within him. This could be the place, he murmured to himself, his voice barely rising above a whisper. He could almost hear Clara encouraging him, urging him to take action. This land could become the vibrant garden they had always talked about. It could honor her memory, bring life back to his heart, and perhaps even to the town. Ezekiel approached the plot, his hands trembling with a mix of excitement and fear. He envisioned the flowers blooming, the colors brightening the dull landscape. But as he shared his plan with the townspeople, their responses were filled with skepticism. "You really think you can turn that wasteland into a garden?" an old man scoffed, shaking his head. Others shrugged or turned away, their indifference piercing through Ezekiel's heart like thorns. Was he foolish to dream in a place that had forgotten how to hope? Yet, as the sun broke through the clouds on a sunny spring day, Ezekiel felt a surge of determination. He knelt on the dry ground, his hands digging into the earth. The weight of doubt pressed on him, but he pushed it aside. "These seeds are not just plants," he said aloud. "They are a promise that life can return, that beauty can grow even here." He planted the first seeds, feeling both hope and sorrow intertwining in his heart. As days passed, Ezekiel returned to the plot, tending to the soil and watering the seeds. Each visit felt like a small act of rebellion against the despair that surrounded him. He spoke to the plants as if they were Clara, sharing his thoughts and fears, hoping they could hear him. "What would you think of this place now, Clara?" he wondered aloud, smiling as he imagined her voice encouraging him, reminding him of their dreams. But with each passing day, the seeds remained stubbornly buried, and the townspeople continued to cast doubtful glances at the barren patch of earth. "It's a waste of time," one woman said to her friend as they walked by. "Nothing will grow there." Ezekiel felt the weight of their disbelief. How could he convince them that a garden could emerge from this dryness? Could he really make a difference? One evening, after a long day of watering and weeding, Ezekiel sat on the edge of the plot, staring at the earth. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the landscape. "What am I doing?" he sighed, the question lingering in the air. He felt like he was fighting against a tide that would never change. The garden seemed a distant dream, and his heart ached with the weight of his solitude. But as the stars began to twinkle above, a sense of calm washed over him. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, inhaling the cool evening air. Ezekiel knew he had to keep going, not just for himself, but for Clara. He would not let their dream fade away. Renewed by this thought, he resolved to plant more seeds, to nurture this dream, even in the face of doubt. Perhaps, just perhaps, the garden could grow, and with it, a new chapter of hope could begin. As the weeks drifted by, the sun rose and set over the barren plot of land that Ezekiel had chosen for his garden. Each day felt heavier than the last. The seeds he had planted lay dormant in the dry soil, and doubt crept into his heart. Ezekiel walked through the empty space, his hands buried deep in his pockets, and thought of Clara. "What would you say if you saw this?" he whispered to the wind, wishing for a sign that he was on the right path. One afternoon, while he was tending to the ground, Ezekiel noticed a figure in the distance. A young woman approached, her clothes singed and her face weathered by recent hardships. It was Amara, a newcomer to town. Rumors had spread about the wildfire that had taken her home. Ezekiel's heart sank as he saw the pain in her eyes. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice soft. Amara looked at him, her expression a mixture of sadness and strength. "I've lost everything," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm trying to find hope again." Ezekiel felt an unexpected connection with her words. "I understand," he said. "I'm trying to build something beautiful here, but it feels like a lost cause." "Maybe it's not," Amara replied, her eyes lighting up a little. "Can I help?" Ezekiel hesitated for a moment, unsure if he was ready to share his vision, but something in her sincerity made him nod. "Sure, I could use some help. I want to turn this place into a garden, but..." He paused, feeling vulnerable. "It seems impossible." Amara took a step closer. "Let's do it together. We can dream up something amazing." Her enthusiasm was infectious, and for the first time in weeks, Ezekiel felt a flicker of hope. As the days passed, Amara brought fresh ideas to the project. She suggested planting colorful flowers that would attract butterflies and herbs that could be useful for cooking. "Let's make this place vibrant," she urged, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Think of it as our way of healing." Ezekiel listened as she spoke, her passion igniting a fire within him. "You're right," he said, feeling a smile break across his face. "It can be a space for everyone, a place to remember our losses and celebrate new beginnings." Together, they began to reach out to the community. "We should share our stories," Amara suggested one evening as they worked under the setting sun. "If they see what we're trying to do, maybe they'll want to help." Ezekiel nodded, feeling the energy shift around them. "Let's invite them to join us. We can hold a community gathering right here." The following week, they posted flyers around town. The words, "Join us to create a garden of hope," filled the pages, and Ezekiel felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. What if no one showed up? On the day of the gathering, Ezekiel stood at the edge of the plot, his heart racing. Amara stood beside him, her eyes scanning the horizon. Slowly, people began to arrive. Neighbors, friends, and even those who had been skeptical about Ezekiel's dream came forward, drawn by curiosity. "Thank you all for coming," Ezekiel started, his voice shaking slightly. "This place has been empty for too long. I want to create a garden, a space for us to share our stories and find healing together." Amara stepped forward, her voice strong and clear. "We've all faced loss, but together we can make something beautiful out of our pain. Let's turn this land into a garden filled with life." The crowd murmured in agreement, and Ezekiel felt a wave of relief wash over him. The energy shifted from doubt to hope. People began to share their own experiences, stories of love and loss, laughter and tears. Each voice added to the spirit of the gathering. As they talked, Ezekiel noticed the glimmer of determination in their eyes. Maybe they could create something extraordinary after all. "Let's get our hands dirty," Amara exclaimed, and laughter erupted among the crowd. With renewed energy, they began to dig, plant, and nurture. Ezekiel watched as the soil transformed, not just with seeds, but with the bonds forming among the people. In that moment, standing beside Amara and surrounded by the community, Ezekiel felt Clara's presence with him. It was as if she were smiling down, reminding him that love and hope could still grow, even in the most challenging times. As the days turned into weeks, the garden transformed. Bright flowers bloomed in every corner, and green leaves unfurled under the warm sun. The once neglected plot of land now buzzed with life. Children laughed as they played among the rows of plants, and the sweet scent of blooming flowers filled the air. Ezekiel Hayes stood at the edge of the garden, a smile stretching across his weathered face. He felt a surge of hope as he watched the vibrant colors come alive. "Look, Ezekiel, the daisies are finally blooming," Amara called out, her eyes sparkling with excitement. She knelt by a flower bed, gently brushing her fingers over the petals. Ezekiel walked over, his heart swelling with pride. "They are beautiful, Amara, just like we imagined," he replied, kneeling beside her. Together, they admired the flowers, their laughter mingling with the sounds of nature around them. The garden had begun to draw the attention of the townsfolk. Even those who once scoffed at Ezekiel's dream now paused to look. Mrs. Jenkins, a woman known for her sharp tongue, stood at the gate, her arms crossed. "I never thought you'd make it this far, Ezekiel," she said, her voice a mix of surprise and admiration. "Neither did I," Ezekiel admitted, smiling at her. "But with Amara's help and the support of the community, we've created something special." As word spread about the flourishing garden, Ezekiel and Amara decided to host a community event. They wanted to invite everyone to share their stories and connect through their shared experiences of loss and hope. Flyers were posted around town, and a buzz of excitement filled the air. On the day of the event, the sun shone brightly, and the garden was filled with laughter and chatter. Families brought picnic blankets, and friends gathered under the shade of a large oak tree. Ezekiel stood at the front, his heart racing as he looked out at the crowd. "Thank you all for coming today," he began, his voice steady but warm. "This garden is not just a place for plants, it's a space for healing. It has become a symbol of what we can achieve together." Amara stepped forward, her enthusiasm infectious. "We want to hear your stories," she said, her eyes scanning the crowd. "Each of you has faced challenges, just like us. Let's share our journeys and find strength in one another." One by one, people began to speak. Mr. Thompson, the town's elderly carpenter, shared how he lost his wife years ago and how the garden reminded him of her love for flowers. "I used to think I could never find joy again," he said, his voice trembling. "But seeing this garden grow has brought me hope." Another voice rang out, a young mother named Sarah, who spoke about losing her home in the recent wildfire. "I thought I had lost everything," she said, tears glistening in her eyes. "But this garden has shown me that there is still beauty in the world." As more people shared their stories, the garden buzzed with a sense of unity. Strangers became friends, and the air was thick with shared understanding. Ezekiel felt a warmth spreading through him, a sense of purpose he had not known before. "Together, we can build something beautiful," Amara said, her voice carrying over the crowd. "Let's keep this garden alive, not just for ourselves, but for those we have lost and for future generations." The event ended with laughter, tears, and a promise to return. People left with new friendships and a renewed sense of hope. Ezekiel watched as they walked away, feeling Clara's presence beside him like a gentle breeze. He knew she would be proud of the community they had built together. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the garden, Ezekiel turned to Amara. "We've created something amazing here," he said, gratitude flooding his heart. Amara nodded, her smile bright. "And it's just the beginning, Ezekiel. The garden will continue to grow, just like our community." With that, they stood together, watching the flowers sway in the evening breeze, knowing that they were nurturing not only a garden, but also the roots of a blossoming community. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting warm, golden rays over the blossoming garden, Ezekiel Hayes felt a sense of peace wash over him. The flowers danced gently in the breeze, their colors vibrant against the green backdrop. However, this tranquility was soon shattered by news that would turn his world upside down. One afternoon, while tending to the delicate petals of a newly bloomed rose, Ezekiel received a call from a friend in the town council. "Ezekiel, you need to come to the meeting tonight," the voice on the other end said, urgency thick in the air. "They're talking about plans for redevelopment. Your garden might be in danger." Ezekiel's heart sank. "What do you mean? They can't take it away. It's our garden," he exclaimed, his voice trembling with emotion. "I know, but you have to show up and speak. The town needs to hear how important this place is to us." Gripping the phone tightly, Ezekiel's mind raced. The garden had become a sanctuary for him, a place where he felt Clara's spirit mingling with the earth and the flowers. He could not let this space be destroyed. Later that evening, Ezekiel and Amara gathered with a small group of community members. The air was thick with tension as they prepared for the meeting. "Are we really going to fight this?" Amara asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "It feels so big, like we're up against a wall." Ezekiel looked at her, determination shining in his eyes. "If we don't stand up for what we've built here, it will all be gone. We have to show them how much this garden means to us. It's not just dirt and plants, it's our memories, our healing." Amara nodded, her resolve strengthening. "Then let's do it together." As the meeting began, residents filled the small town hall, their faces a mix of worry and determination. Ezekiel stood at the front, flanked by Amara and others who had joined their cause. The council members sat behind a long table, looking down at the crowd with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Ezekiel cleared his throat, feeling the weight of the moment. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "This garden is not just a collection of plants. It is a testament to our community. It has brought us together in ways we never imagined." The room was silent, the gravity of his words sinking in. A woman from the back spoke up, her voice shaky, yet strong. "I lost my husband last year. This garden is where I found hope again. It helped me heal." Another person raised their hand. "My kids love coming here. They play among the flowers and learn about nature. It's a safe place for them." Ezekiel watched as more residents began to share their stories. Each testimony echoed through the hall, weaving a tapestry of shared pain and hope. The passion in their voices filled the air, igniting a fire in the hearts of those present. As the meeting progressed, the mood shifted from despair to determination. The council members exchanged glances, slowly realizing that this garden was more than just a piece of land. It was a lifeline for the community. Ezekiel stepped forward again, his heart racing with the energy of his neighbors. "Together, we can show the city that this garden is worth saving. It represents our resilience, our ability to come together even in the face of loss. We cannot let it be taken away." The crowd erupted in applause, their voices rising in support. "Save the garden! Save the garden!" they chanted, their unity palpable. Amara grabbed Ezekiel's arm, her eyes shining with excitement. "We can really do this. Look at them." Ezekiel felt a rush of hope swell within him. The fight for the garden was no longer just his own. It was a fight for every person who had found solace among the flowers. He knew that together, they could challenge the city's plans and protect their sanctuary. As the meeting drew to a close, a renewed sense of purpose filled the room. The community had come together to stand for something greater than themselves, and Ezekiel felt a sense of Clara's presence, whispering encouragement in the breeze. The garden, their symbol of hope and healing, was worth every effort they would make to preserve it. As the sun rose over the garden, its golden light washed over the vibrant colors of the flowers and the green leaves that had flourished under Ezekiel and Amara's care. But despite the beauty before them, a sense of urgency hung in the air. The threat of development loomed large, casting a shadow over their hard work and the community that had started to blossom around the garden. Ezekiel stood at the edge of the garden, looking at the small group of neighbors gathered around him. Their faces were a mix of determination and worry. He cleared his throat and spoke. "We cannot let this garden go. It represents hope for all of us. We've built something beautiful here." Amara nodded beside him, her eyes shining with resolve. "This garden is more than just plants. It's a place where we share our stories, our losses, and our dreams. We must fight for it." The group murmured in agreement, their spirits lifting. They began brainstorming ways to protect the garden. A woman named Sarah, who had found solace in the garden after losing her brother, raised her hand. "What if we start a petition? We can gather signatures from everyone who cares about this place." Ezekiel smiled at her suggestion. "That's a great idea, Sarah. We need to show the city how much this garden means to us." He could see the energy building among the group, and it filled him with hope. As they discussed their plans, a young man named James spoke up. "We should organize a demonstration. Let the city see how many of us are willing to stand up for this garden." His voice was strong and confident, and Ezekiel felt a surge of pride. "Yes, a demonstration," Amara exclaimed. "We can make signs and gather at the city hall. Let's show them that we are united." The energy in the group intensified as they made plans. They divided tasks, assigning roles for gathering signatures, creating signs, and spreading the word. Ezekiel felt a sense of purpose wash over him. He was no longer alone in this fight. The community was rallying together. Days passed, and the garden buzzed with activity. Neighbors came to help with the petition, and soon they had thousands of signatures. Each signature told a story, a testament to the importance of the garden in their lives. Ezekiel took the time to read some of the stories, and each one deepened his resolve. On the day of the demonstration, a palpable excitement filled the air. Ezekiel stood at the front of the crowd, holding a sign that read, "Save our garden." He looked out at the sea of faces, some young, some old, all united for a common cause. Amara stood beside him, her sign held high, her spirit contagious. "Today, we show the city that this garden matters," Ezekiel shouted, his voice ringing with passion. The crowd erupted in cheers. As they marched toward City Hall, they chanted slogans of hope and determination. "Save the garden, save our home." The sound of their voices echoed down the streets, drawing more attention. Passers-by stopped to watch, some joining in the demonstration, adding their voices to the cause. When they arrived at City Hall, the atmosphere was electric. The crowd gathered outside, holding their signs high. Ezekiel felt a mixture of fear and excitement. This was the moment they had worked for. Inside the council chamber, the city officials sat, ready to hear the community's plea. Ezekiel and Amara were called to present their case. As they stepped forward, Ezekiel felt Clara's presence beside him, guiding him. "Honorable council members," Ezekiel began, his voice steady, "this garden is not just a collection of plants. It is a symbol of hope, healing, and community. It has helped us through our darkest times." He paused, looking at the faces of his neighbors, their eyes filled with hope. Amara added, "We've lost so much, but this garden has brought us together. It's a place where we can remember our loved ones and celebrate life. We ask you to reconsider your plans. Please, let this garden thrive." The council listened intently, and Ezekiel could see that his words were making an impact. He hoped they could feel the passion and love that the community held for the garden. As they finished their presentation and stepped back, a sense of calm fell over Ezekiel. Whatever the outcome, he knew they had fought with everything they had. The garden, a living testament to their resilience, had sparked a movement of hope that would forever change their lives. The sun rose softly over the garden, casting a warm glow on the vibrant flowers that danced gently in the morning breeze. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming petals, and the sounds of laughter and chatter echoed through the once quiet space. Ezekiel Hayes stood at the edge of the garden, his heart swelling with pride and relief. The city council had listened. They had chosen to preserve the garden. "Can you believe it, Ezekiel?" Amara said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. She was kneeling beside a bed of daisies, carefully tending to the delicate flowers. "We actually did it." Ezekiel nodded, still in awe of how far they had come. "I didn't think they would understand," he admitted, looking around at the bustling scene. Neighbors were planting new seeds, watering the plants, and sharing stories. It felt like a celebration of life itself. As they worked, a group of children raced through the garden, their laughter ringing out like music. They stopped by Ezekiel, their faces bright with joy. "Look what we found," shouted a little girl, holding up a butterfly that had landed on her finger. "It's so pretty." "Just like this garden," Ezekiel replied, smiling at the child. "You know, every butterfly needs a place to grow, just like we all do." Amara glanced at Ezekiel, her expression thoughtful. It's true. This garden is more than just plants. It's a home for all of us. It reminds us that we can start fresh, no matter what we've been through. Ezekiel felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. The garden had become a sanctuary, a place where people gathered to share their joys and sorrows. It was a living testament to resilience and hope. I never imagined it could become this, he said, his voice filled with emotion. Clara would have loved this. Amara paused, her gaze softening. She is here with us, Ezekiel, in every flower that blooms, in every laugh we share. Her spirit lives on through this garden. As the day unfolded, the garden buzzed with activity. Neighbors brought food to share, and soon a small picnic took shape under the shade of a large oak tree. The scent of homemade pies and fresh bread filled the air, adding to the warmth of the gathering. "Hey, Ezekiel," called out a man from across the blanket. "You've got to try this pie. It's the best I've ever made." He laughed, his eyes twinkling with delight. Ezekiel chuckled as he walked over, taking a slice of the pie handed to him. "I'll be the judge of that," he said, taking a bite. The sweetness burst in his mouth, and he grinned. "You might be right. This is amazing." As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the garden, Ezekiel gathered everyone's attention. "Thank you all for being here today," he said, his voice steady. "This garden is a symbol of what we can achieve together. It's a place for healing, for new beginnings. Let's continue to nurture it, just as we nurture each other." The crowd cheered, their spirits high. Amara stepped forward, her heart full. "And let's remember that every seed we plant is a promise of hope. Together, we can grow something beautiful." Ezekiel looked around at the faces of his friends and neighbors, feeling an overwhelming sense of belonging. Love, he realized, was like the garden. It could thrive even in the harshest conditions. It needed care, attention, and the will to grow. As twilight descended, the first stars began to twinkle in the sky. The garden was alive with light and laughter, a beacon of hope in the night. Ezekiel stood in the center of it all, surrounded by the people who had become his family. "Here's to new roots and new beginnings," he said, raising a glass of lemonade. The crowd echoed his toast, their voices mingling with the sounds of the evening. In that moment, as the stars shone overhead, Ezekiel knew they had created something lasting. The garden was not just a place of beauty, it was a testament to their journey, a reminder that together they could face whatever came next. And with that thought, he felt a sense of peace, knowing that tomorrow held endless possibilities. Share this story if you believe that love and community can bloom even in the toughest of times. Leave a comment about how a shared space has transformed your life, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales like this one. Let's continue to spread hope together.